Troy varsity. Lincoln varsity. Monroe Jefferson Middle School. East Jackson varsity. Plymouth varsity. Dexter Middle School. Adrian varsity. Dexter varsity. Please rise, and gentlemen, please remove your hats as we ask that all team members join together in respectfully singing the national anthem to kick off our event.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, as we bring you the Saline High School Competitive Cheer Invitational. It is actually called the Saline Cheer Your Heart Out Invitational, and we actually have several different teams here from several different counties. Monroe Jefferson's obviously from Monroe. We have several from Lenawee, and we have obviously several from Washtenaw. So, and Northville, I believe, is actually in Livingston County. So we have several different schools that are here today, and we actually have several different middle schools, high schools that will be competing in this three-round invitational. So as soon as we get the scores, we'll be sure to bring them to you. And on tap first here. And on tap first here for us is the new Boston Huron Chiefs, as they will be kicking off our event here today. And we're going to just have a lot of crowd noise here today. So we ask of your patience, obviously, with this sort of event that we're going to be covering today. It's going to be quite noisy there, folks, so we'll do the best we can, but bear with us. And for all of those who are tuning in with us here today on this very snowy Saturday afternoon, this is the new Boston Huron varsity cheerleading team, not the Ann Arbor Huron. I know some people might have been confused about that, and with that, we're off. And with that opening act, that kicks off our event here. We have 3 separate rounds, and we actually have schools that are kind of dotted around the perimeter of the high school gym. They're all kind of gathered in their own corner. We have all the bleachers extended, as you guys can probably see from our differing camera angles. We actually have the Saline Middle School cheerleading team that's gathered around the right side of the gym, and we have the Saline varsity team, is getting ready to perform here. They will be 4th up in our lineup of the first round, and Saline Middle School will make their debut here today in round 2, and they will be the 4th round to square off, while the varsity Lady Hornets will be 9th after Tecumseh Middle School. And we're still unclear as to why there are middle school and JV teams that are also competing with various varsity teams here, but nonetheless, a very interesting development here indeed. Is there are obviously not many other sports where you see middle school, JV, and varsity teams all competing for one.
Saline varsity on deck, Plymouth varsity. Up next, Adrian varsity. Adrian varsity, you may approach the mat.
And Adrian Maples now getting ready to take the mat. And in order to determine a winner here tonight, folks, it will be the team with the best 3-round cumulative score. So this will be our second act of the night. And that is the first act of the night. The first choreography, for the Adrian Maples. Adrian's a small school out in, I believe it's Lenawee County, about 800, 900 students. Currently in the SEC white for football, baseball, basketball. And the differences with cheerleading, you kind of have those SEC schools, whether it be a dual meet or whether it be a bigger regional meet like today, they're all kind of lumped together. So there is no really SEC red or white in terms of cheerleading. It's just kind of all one universal conference. And I believe that the Plymouth Wildcats now will be proceeding to take the mat here shortly, followed by our very own Saline Varsity Girls. And each one of these teams that will be facing off in all 3 rounds. It appears that all varsity teams will be facing off in all 3 rounds, while a lot of these middle school teams are only going to be in rounds 2 and 3. Obviously, there's quite the challenge having to perfect 3 different routines. You go once, then obviously you go again, and you go again. So you have one bad round, and you obviously set yourself up to have to really perform exceptional to try to make up the ground that you lost in the first round. And with that, folks, the Plymouth Wildcats, I believe, are ready to rock and roll. And with as many teams that have showed up here today, this is more of a district regional meet. Most of the times you'll maybe see 2 or 3 other teams, but we have 7 or 8 by our count that have braved the elements, so to speak, and come out to express their talents. Very good opening performance there for the Plymouth Wildcats. I believe that was actually one of our, excuse me about that, I believe that was one of our better performances all that we've had so far here today, folks. I think the Wildcats are in a good position to get a good opening score here. And now our very own Saline girls will be taking the mat here very shortly. Saline is actually led by Coach Sarah Kwecky and Coach Kathy Mutter. Kwecky's actually handling more of the day-to-day duties now. Mutter's kind of taking a step back just a little bit, but they still both have a very big hand in how the day-to-day administration is run. And obviously with any sport, you kind of want to defend your own turf here, and I think Saline would agree with my sentiment there, and it appears that the Hornets, led by seniors Alyssa Baird, Sarah Jean Martin, and junior Ellie Peterson, will be ready to take the mat here shortly. And after Saline, we have the Troy Varsity cheer team, followed by the Jefferson Junior Varsity team, which will mark the first Junior Varsity team of the night, followed by Dexter, Tecumseh, East Lincoln, or Ypsilanti, excuse me, then East Lincoln, or East Jackson, and then Ypsilanti Lincoln. And the only other JV team, with the exception of Jefferson here today, will be the Ypsilanti Lincoln JV team in round one.
On deck, Troy varsity. Up next, Saline varsity.
And the Hornets now ready to take the mat. Several of the key contributors for the Maddie Salmon, who's the farthest cheerleader to the right, is another senior leader who's really been big for the Hornets, as well as Sarah Lahi, Ellie Peterson, Alyssa Baird, Daniel Beckish, among others. And very strong performance there for the Lady Hornets as well. We have made the decision that we're not necessarily going to compete while the girls are doing their routines, just for more audio reasons, among other things. Obviously, this is a unique sport, and unlike other sports, you know, with the action, you have a lot more crowd noise, because obviously with competitive cheer, you're going to have a lot more yelling, a lot more of that rah-rah sort of attitude. Troy varsity now will appear to take the stage. A lot of these routines, folks, aren't very long. They're about a minute and a half little tidbits, but you still have to perfect every second of it. It looked to be a very positive run for Saline there, and we actually sat down with a couple of Saline senior captains on Hornet Nation, Sarah Lahi and Alyssa Baird, to be exact, and they made it very clear that if they were able to finish in the top four, they would advance. You know, this is kind of getting to the time of the year when a lot of the winter sports are dialing down and you have a lot more of the spring sports. And Saline normally does pretty good in cheerleading, but kind of struggles to really be a big state contender. So a good performance here tonight would go a long way in terms of trying to rectify that situation. And Troy High School about ready to take the mat, it appears, and they obviously had quite the drive to get over here with all the snow that we've had. Troy obviously being quite a little bit north, so very happy to see that the ladies got here safely. And another solid opening performance there by the Troy Colts. Next, we have the Monroe Jefferson, JV, marking our first JV performance here of the night. Monroe Jefferson is a rather small Division 6, I believe, and at least it was for football. It's a Division 6 high school that's located in Monroe, so obviously we have quite a few schools that had to go a little bit of ways here. Obviously, Northville, Tecumseh, East Jackson especially, Plymouth. You have quite a few schools that are 45 minutes to an hour away here, and with all the bad weather that we've had, we weren't completely sure if we were going to be able to get the meet. And today the meet was originally supposed to start at 10 a.m., but it was pushed back until noon to give the ladies a little bit more leeway with getting here, and it appears that that time was well spent. And now the 8 ladies from the Monroe Jefferson High School junior varsity team appear to get ready to take the stand. Tell you something else there too, folks. It's just really amazing to me to at least see, regardless of whatever sporting event is held here, whether it be a dual meet for wrestling, whether it be a basketball game, and every time Saline always packs the bleachers. And with that being said, you actually have quite a few parents that are here in attendance. You kind of actually have these little mini fan sections that are scattered around throughout the stadium gym here. I think we're sitting right above the Northville section, but we have several different sections, and you have several different fans that have kind of congregated in one area, so to speak, and some teams have even hung up their banner around the outside fence perimeter. And with that being said, Dexter appears to start their routine. And a lot of these lady cheerleaders that you will see are also obviously part of sideline cheer, which is those cheerleaders that you see at the football games, at the basketball games that are cheering along the sideline. And this is more of a competitive cheer where instead of cheering on the basketball and the football sporting teams, you have teams competing against each other. And there is a big difference in the fall. A lot of times you'll have these ladies to just get in shape and they kind of develop a unison or in a cohesiveness factor. There's a cohesiveness factor to it when you're obviously cheerleading in the fall together. In the winter as it is now, and then you'll have a lot of club cheerleading events in the spring, and obviously then the cycle repeats itself. We have the Tecumseh Indians who will be taking the mat next, followed by the Northville Mustangs, the Ypsilanti Lincoln Rail Splitters, East Jackson, and the Ypsilanti Lincoln Junior Varsity cheerleading team, excuse me. And that will conclude our round one. And our round one is actually the shortest of the rounds in terms of performers. Our round two and round three have six, by my count, six more performers, because obviously you have the addition of the middle schools, and that helps to boost the performers here. In round two, we will have Livonia Middle School, Saline Middle School, New Boston Huron Middle School, Tecumseh Middle School, Jefferson Middle School, and Dexter Middle School, who will all be here and performing in round two, and they will also be performing in round three. And you can hear from the PA announcer that they're using a little bit of the baseball analogy in terms of being on deck and in the hole. In the hole, for all of you guys that may be wondering, means that they are 3 away from going, and on deck means that they will be going after the current performer is done. There's not a lot of SEC red opponents here today. In other words, Monroe, Skyline, Huron, Ann Arbor Huron, excuse me, obviously did not make the trip, but you have a lot of SEC white opponents. I believe that every SEC white opponent is here today with the exception of Chelsea. So they did make the trip. And for all of those who may be wondering, these events are usually scored on choreography, team unison. There's really a big aesthetic feel in terms of how these events are scored. There's no standard scoring system like there is in, with football, you get 3 points for a field goal, 6 for a touchdown. In basketball, you get 2 points, or you can get 3 points. There's nothing like that with these. These are based more at the judge's discretion. And that's how a lot of these more artistic forms of sporting events are, whether it be, obviously, for all of those of you who may watch American Idol or watch The Voice, you have people that sing, and then individual judges look for different things, and they give their own score. So you have a lot of these judges, actually, that are sitting not below us, but on the other side of the mat, that are currently talking right now, discussing what they liked, what they may not have liked, and they will be assigning a round one score here, very shortly. And With that, the Northville Mustangs on the left side, the left corner side of the stadium here, are about ready to take the mat. And they will be followed by the Ypsilanti Lincoln Rail Splitters. And like we said, I think everybody but Pinckney and Chelsea for the SEC White showed up. East Jackson is going to be in the SEC White, I believe, starting this year for football. And other schools such as Tecumseh, Adrian, have kind of been, Tecumseh have been a really kind of a mainstay in the SEC White. Ypsilanti Lincoln, Dexter, they've all been in the SEC White for a very long time, since the SEC was established in 1969, and it's kind of undergone several redistricting methods, but with the student populations are what are used to categorize these different schools. SEC Red schools obviously are 1,500, 2,000 students, while SEC White schools are about 800 to 1,100, 1,200. So with that being said, here are the Northville Mustangs. And by our count, that will be the 8th or 9th team that has gone here today. And there are going to be 47 total different choreography events before the day is all said and done here. As we have, obviously, much more action come to you guys after round 1 is done. Round 2 will be followed by Troy, Livonia, Tecumseh, and then Saline Middle School. Saline Varsity will be going more toward the middle of the round. Good performance there by the Saline girls. Looked very well, looked very nimble, and looked very well rehearsed. And obviously for a sport such as this, athleticism, extreme flexibility, you have to be in very, very good shape physically, you know, with all the jumping and springing that this sport involves. So you're going to see a lot of very good athletes here today. With that being said, the Ypsilanti Lincoln Rail Splitters, which are just down the road here, not too far away from Saline at all, will be taking the mat here, and then the East Jackson will be following it off. Actually, the last 2 out of the last 3 events are from Ypsilanti Lincoln. Lincoln's JV will be ending round 1, while Ypsi Lincoln's varsity will be the next event that will be sponsored here tonight. And most of these cheerleading teams have between 10 or 15 members in them. You might see a couple with some more. The middle school teams so far appear to have about 8 to 10 members, so. And this mat that the ladies will be performing on here, it seems like every time Saline has a big event, we always have these really large wrestling mats that are stored in storage, but I honestly do not know where they dragged out this giant foam padding mat here. Obviously, as big of a high school as this, has a lot of storage room, but it seems like we kind of have an endless supply of supplies for this kind of thing. Saline, obviously, being as big as it is, kind of makes it a really ideal place to host a lot of these events. Hence why you have a district meet like today, the Cheer Your Heart Out Invitational, being held here. And the East Jackson varsity cheerleading team will be taking the mat next, and after that, the Ypsilanti Lincoln JV Rail Splitters will be taking the mat, and with that, that will be the conclusion of round one. And this broadcast to you today features two different camera angles. If you guys are currently staying tuned with us, we have several different shotgun microphones that are situated around the perimeter of the track that are hopefully bringing you guys good audio of the girls and of some other noises that are obviously attributed to this sort of event. So we would like to thank the Community Education Department and the SWWC for continuing to sponsor our broadcasts. And with that, I believe that this may be the smallest cheerleading team that we have seen so far today, as only 5 ladies appear to be here for the East Jackson varsity team. And with that, East Jackson appears to be ready to rock and roll. And obviously with cheerleading, a lot of these girls that also do cheerleading will also do things such as gymnastics and dance in order to try to continually improve their agility, their flexibility, things along those lines. As obviously you have, a football player may play basketball and baseball in the spring. You might have a cheerleader that might do sideline dance, may do something along those lines. And with that, I believe we will have a short intermission. I think that may actually conclude round one. I'm not completely sure as to where if Ypsilanti Lincoln's JV team is here or not, but I believe we will have a short intermission here. So with that, we will be right back to bring you coverage from round two.
chance to win one of the team baskets and or 50-50. Raffle winners will be announced after round 3. Thank you. Teams, can you please clear the mat? We are ready to begin round 2.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready to start round 2 here. The Troy Varsity High School team will be kicking off round 2 here. The teams just had a brief 10-minute intermission, and there's also going to be a brief 10-minute intermission between round 2 and 3 here, so we'll be sure to keep you guys updated as these scores come along. And speaking of these scores can be found at GOO.GL/4VNPJO. We will repeat that later in the broadcast, but these scores will be updated live, and that is the URL that you can take in order to find your team scores. And with that, the Troy High School ladies will be ready to take the mat. And by our count, with that event concluded, we still have 17 more girls teams going here in round 2. That is if the Ypsilanti Lincoln Junior Varsity team makes an appearance here. We still have yet to see if they will show up here today. And once again, in this brief intermission, the URL to check for the up-to-date scores is GOO.GL/4VNPJO. So everything is not capitalized with the exception of the J there. Thank you to our statistics department for giving us that. And with that being said, the Livonia Unified Middle School girls will be making their first appearance on the mat here today. And what you'll actually see here is our camera is currently to the back of these young women, but you're going to have the two coaches that are above the stand, and they are currently giving the choreography advice to the young ladies here, to the 8 young Livonia Unified Middle School ladies. And it looks like the right side of the gym is kind of cleared out, but on our left side we have Dexter, New Boston Huron, Jefferson JV. We have a lot of these schools that have kind of clustered themselves in the left side of the gymnasium. And in the wrestling room, for all of those of you who have been to Saline High School, it is a room that's obviously used for wrestling practice, as its name implies, and this is currently where a lot of the other girls' teams that are going later are practicing their choreography. The teams that are situated right now are the ones that are going to be going in the next 5 to 6 slots. So obviously, the more time that's left, teams are going to look for every little edge that they can in order to perfect what they've been practicing. With that over with, Tecumseh's varsity team will be making their second appearance so far, and they will be followed by the Saline Middle School girls cheerleading team. And obviously, with all the varsity coaches around, the middle school coaches, or the middle school ladies, are going to be looking to make quite an impression, because it's going to be a little daunting for these young ladies as they're going up against varsity and junior varsity high school students and high school programs. But if they're able to succeed, obviously it will attract the attention of the varsity coaches. And with that, the Tecumseh Indians will be ready to rock and roll here. And a strong second performance there for the Tecumseh Indians. The Saline Middle School will be performing here. We will actually have, after Saline Middle School, Northville Varsity will be making their second appearance, but they will be followed by another middle school, the New Boston Huron Middle School ladies. And with that being said, the future generation of Saline cheerleading superstars appears to be about ready to take the mat here. And from all the indications that I've heard, Saline has a very strong middle school program here, and a lot of these ladies will be attending the school here and cheerleading here within the next year or two. And a very, very, very impressive, very strong performance there by the Saline Middle School girls. The backflip and the back springs, especially, I believe there were 2 or 3 of them by our count, were very impressive indeed. Very strong performance there by the Saline Middle School cheerleading team. Obviously, Coach Mutter and Coach Kowecki have to be very, very, very pleased with the farm system, so to speak. And a lot of those girls clearly have quite a little bit of talent. So Saline's going to need that talent, obviously, with leaders like Sarah Jean Martin, Sarah Lai, Maddie Salmon, Alyssa Baird graduating. The more talent that you're able to bring down the pipe, the obviously better your team's outlook will be in the future. Very strong performance there by the Northville Mustangs varsity cheerleading team. They will be followed by the new Boston Huron Middle School cheerleading team. And obviously these middle school ladies are going to have a little bit shorter of a performance because for them, obviously performance and point placement is big, but more than anything else, you want to get them accustomed to cheering on a big stage. It's more of just kind of getting their feet wet, so to speak, in order to get them a little bit more comfortable, because cheerleading is one of those sports where the more comfortable you get, you learn to feed off the crowd enthusiasm, and obviously your performance will increase exponentially because of that. And with that, here are the new Boston Huron Middle School Lady Chiefs. And the Lady Chiefs will be backed up by the Huron varsity Chiefs. So after we get the new Boston Huron Middle School ladies, like we just did, the Huron varsity ladies will be taking the mat. And after them will be the Tecumseh Middle School ladies. And after them will be the Saline varsity cheerleading team, who is coming off a very strong round one performance. And obviously cheerleading, a lot of it is showmanship. And you have a lot of these ladies waving to the crowd, waving to their student section, waving to where their parents and supporters may be crowded. And with that, the 7th event of this round 2 appears to be ready to take off. And we have our fourth, middle school team that is about to take the mat, and that will be the Tecumseh Middle School ladies. And let's see what they're capable to do. I've been very impressed so far with the performance of these middle school ladies, obviously coming into a big meet like this, surrounded by so many varsity contenders. You know, you might have the tendency to get a little bit rattled, but the other thing that I have really enjoyed is, as it was with the Saline Middle School meet just a couple slots ago, the middle school meet is obviously going on in the mat, but you have the varsity team cheering on their younger counterparts off to the side, and I think that can really help calm down maybe some of the nervous young ladies out. Strong opening performance there by the Tecumseh Middle School ladies. They will be also facing off in round 3, as they will be right after the Saline varsity ladies in round 3. And with that being said, speak of the devil, here come the Saline varsity cheerleaders now. Saline, by my count, I believe has 3 or 4 seniors that are currently on the team there, and it appears that the Lady Hornets are about ready to take the mat here. Strong performance there from the Saline varsity cheerleading team. It appears that Alyssa Baird and Sarah Jean Martin were given that match to rest, as some of the other cheerleaders got to get in. And obviously with those two ladies graduating, some of the younger ladies such as Danielle Beckish, who's a freshman, and Austin Hanna's younger sister, she also got a little bit of mat time there. And obviously those two girls are going to be looked at heavily next year, as Selena's going to be graduating several of their key contributors. But with those two girls, and among especially having Ellie Peterson back, they will be in good shape. And with that, the Monroe Jefferson, actually, excuse me, no, that's the Ypsilanti Lincoln JV or varsity that will be taking them out here, excuse me. And this is Jefferson High School, I beg your pardon. And more than anything else, obviously, some mat time for the middle schoolers from several different parts of the 3 or 4 counties that we have representing here today. But I think another really key aspect is just being able to watch, take in what other schools are doing. And that's the same thing with the coaches, is they're constantly evaluating, knowing what they can do better, as it is with any other sport. And they may see a routine that they didn't think would work and that they would like to try out. And a lot of times with cheerleading, it's, kind of in a sense stealing your opponent's moves and kind of applying them to your own ritual. So we should be ready to rock and roll here as the Ypsilanti Lincoln girls take the mat for the second time here today. And the thing that I've really noticed as being the main discrepancy between round 2 so far and round 1 is you're seeing a lot more agility, and what I mean by that is you're having a lot more girls doing the splits, doing those reversed handstands than we saw in round 1, so perhaps round 1 was more of just kind of getting your feet wet, kind of, just getting situated, and round 2 and round 3 are when you're going to see a lot of these teams sending out a lot of the different stops. So Jefferson Middle School now will be taking the mat here, as they, obviously, this will be their first mat time of the afternoon. And we're quickly ticking down to the final events here of round 2. And just to be clear, for all of your round 1 and round 2 scores, the URL to find those live scoring updates is GOO.GL, followed by a backslash, followed by the number 4, a lowercase VNP, uppercase J, and a lowercase O. And with that, the 5 East Jackson varsity ladies will be ready to take the floor here. And I believe that they have the least amount of cheerleaders cheering today out of all the middle school, high school, and junior varsity teams by our count. And with that performance concluded, the Ypsilanti Lincoln JV team, I believe, may be making an appearance here. They were not able to perform in the first round, and it will be interesting to see if they will be performing here in the second round. As soon as we get word on that, we will pass it along to you. But regardless or not, the Plymouth Varsity Dexter Middle School and the Adrian and Dexter varsity teams will be rounding out this round 2. And the Ypsilanti Lincoln Rail Splitters will be starting us off with the final round, round 3. And we should be ready to get going with our next slot event here very shortly. And I believe that the Ypsilanti Lincoln JV Rail Splitters will be unable to perform here once again, as the Plymouth varsity ladies, who originally scheduled after them, are going to be next out on the mat. And I tell you what, folks, they were the team that, at least in my opinion, had a very, very strong round one. In my opinion, I think they were actually probably the best overall. Just a lot of cohesiveness, a lot of different moves that were incorporated that went very, very well for them. So let's see how the Wildcats do in round two. And another very strong performance there by the Plymouth Wildcats in cheerleading, perhaps more than any other sport. A team in total might have 15 or 16 members out on the mat, but if one member is not successfully able to land a backhand spring or a move that rivals that as such on the first attempt, they might very well get deducted a couple points. So every girl has to be on top of their technique if they want to achieve the best possible score. And the Little Dexter Dreadnoughts, the Dexter Middle School ladies, will be taking the mat here, and they will be followed by two varsity SEC white teams, the Adrian and Dexter varsity teams. And when those teams are concluded, that will be the end of round two, and we would like to remind our viewers out there that there is a 10-minute intermission between round 2 and 3, and with that, we will take a little hiatus, but we will be sure to bring you coverage of round 3 as that starts up here very shortly. The Adrian Maple cheerleading team will be taking the mat next here. The next broadcast that we will have for you guys will actually be this coming Friday at 7 o'clock as the Saline boys basketball team will be looking to get back on the winning track against Bedford. They came very close to beating Huron on the road, 32-30, and kind of that low-scoring, grinded-out sort of performance that Saline's become so accustomed to. They had a rough performance last week against Ann Arbor Pioneer as they struggled to really get anything going offensively, but they will be looking to hopefully rebound as they face off against the Temperance Bedford Mules. So join us next time as we will bring you that this Friday at 7 o'clock. And strong performance there from the Lady Adrian Maples. We would also like to tell our audience that we can also hear cheering in the wrestling room as several teams from round 3 are just going over a last-minute rehearsal in terms of their choreography. And the Dexter Dreadnoughts varsity team will be the last team in round 2. And we are actually situated very close to the Dexter fan section, and chants of DHS for Dexter High School are starting to resonate throughout the high school arena here. And actually, after that Bedford game that we just told you guys about, early March, I believe, is when soccer starts. So we will be sure to bring you several of those games. And it's, you know, really exciting being able to cover lacrosse, soccer, things of those nature that we'll be sure to touch on in week as the winter season concludes, excuse me. We've brought you swimming, we've brought you basketball, we've brought you a lot of those indoor sports, but we're also going to try to do some outdoor sports, so stay tuned. And we see that the Dexter Middle School cheerleading team is kind of making a conduit, a little bit of a tunnel there for the Dexter High School cheerleading team, and they should be ready to take the mat here very, very shortly. And once again, the Dexter Dreadnoughts will conclude round 2.
Dexter varsity, you may approach the mat.
And with that announcement overhead, the Dexter Lady Dreadnoughts will be taking the mat here.
You may take the floor and begin when ready.
And with that performance, that will conclude our round 2. We have a 10-minute intermission break here, but we will be sure to bring you coverage from the final round, round 3 here. And signing off, I am Nathan Stearns, but we'll be back very shortly. Thank you guys for listening.
I'm about to fall down these.
ladies and gentlemen, for round 3, Lincoln Varsity will be going last. Again, for round 3, Lincoln Varsity will be going last. Thank you. teams, can you please clear the mat? We are ready to begin round 3.
And with that announcement, folks, we will be ready to begin round 3 here. And we got word over that intermission that the Ypsilanti Lincoln varsity girls team will actually be moved to last. So I believe that means Saline Middle School will be up first here in this third round. However, don't quote me on that.
In the hole, Monroe Jefferson, junior varsity. On deck, East Jackson varsity. Up next, Saline Middle School.
And there you have it, folks. Saline Middle School will indeed be taking them at their ear first. On deck is the East Jackson varsity cheerleading team, and in the hole will be the Monroe Jefferson JV ladies. And with that being said, the Saline cheerleading team, I believe, has almost 20 members on it. So quite a good turnout here for the middle school team, and they will be facing the other end. They are not facing the wrestling and gymnastics room. And with that being said, we should be about ready to begin round 3 here. And with that, it appears that round 3 is going to feature more of the cheerleading that you see a lot at school assemblies. And what I mean by that is you're going to have a lot of those base girls that will be lifting, a lot of the head girls up in the air. You're going to have a lot of head cheerleaders that are going to be lifted up in the air. And then obviously they will be, I don't want to say drop, so to speak, but obviously they will be let go of. And it'll be the responsibility of the base cheerleaders in order to catch the top cheerleader. And we saw Saline Middle School struggle with that a little bit, especially in the back. They had a couple muffs in terms of trying to get that head cheerleader up. But overall, a strong performance by Saline Middle School today. And with that performance, that will conclude the Saline Middle School Lady Hornets' day. And overall, I think there's a lot that Coach Mutter and Coach Kowicki of the varsity team have got to like for their future prospects. And with that, the East Jackson varsity high school team will be ready to rock and roll here. It's going to be interesting to see what strategy they take with only 5 and obviously, once again, we have that head cheerleader that's being supported by the four base cheerleaders there, and she's going to be twisted, kind of like a tourniquet, and she's going to twist back into the arms of the base cheerleaders. And strong performance there from the East Jackson varsity ladies. It appears that their act is not over. I beg your pardon. And it appears that their flyer, who is their indeed top cheerleader. You have to be very agile. You're almost standing on 1 foot, 15 feet above the ground. Good catch there by the base cheerleaders, and good performance by the flyer overall. And with the conclusion of that, it will mark our third event in this third round as the Monroe Jefferson JV team will be taking the mat here. And we've seen a little bit of sluggish performances by both teams in order to successfully get that flyer up in the air. They've struggled a little bit with that lifting, and the Flyers struggled a little bit with balance, which of course is not something I could do or hardly anybody could do, and you have to have kind of a heart of steel to be able to do that there, folks. I mean, standing on 1 foot with, you know, those ladies being the only thing that prevents you from that, and kind of that hard mat surface, obviously very hard and something that's quite dangerous, but also is executed very well the vast majority of the time because so much of that technique is spent. And with that being said, the Monroe Jefferson lady team will be ready to kick off here. Impressive backflips there. That's one of the first we've seen this round with those backflips. Quite an effort indeed from the junior varsity team, flipping better than a lot of the varsity teams have so far today. And we see a little bit of struggle there with the Monroe Jefferson team as their flyer fell back. The base girls did a good job in securing her safely. And you can imagine how hard that is to be able to stick that landing with just one leg and that other leg kind of tucked underneath you. Strong performance indeed. Several very good front flips there too by the ladies indeed. They not seen a lot of front flips here today, but I have a feeling as this event starts to wind down, we're going to see a lot more front flips because that alone is really when that individual pressure's on you, because if you're not able to land those front flips correctly, you really kind of set your team up for failure. And with that being said, I believe that is the Plymouth varsity team that will be taking the mat here very shortly. The Plymouth Wildcats. Tell you what, from back here, the mascot kind of looks like that of the Nashville Predators. It's kind of, you know, a lot of these high school teams have, like their mascots, the way they're depicted, are really look a lot like college teams, which I think is really interesting. Obviously, Belleville being the Tigers. Their helmet always came across to me as looking a lot like the Clemson Tigers. And obviously here, Plymouth kind of has that Nashville Predators look going for them. And Saline Hornet, you know, looks a lot like the Georgia Tech logo. And obviously, too, like that Monroe Trojan look for all of you out there who may know what that Monroe Trojan looks like. It is depicted a lot like the San Jose State Trojan, just painted a different color, and that's the same with the Bedford Mules, who have that kind of that Colt-shaped white Colt that rivals that of the Indianapolis Colts. The only difference being the Indianapolis Colts obviously have a white background helmet with the blue ring in the front, whereas the Temperance Bedford Mules have a red background for their helmets and a black Colt ring. What a performance there by the Plymouth Wildcats. They were able to get 4 girls almost up in unison. Very strong performance indeed. We've seen a lot of girls really struggling in that flyer position, which for all those of you who may not know is that top position. The girl that is currently upright right now is that flyer, and Plymouth so far doing a very good job with that. Very strong performance indeed so far for the Wildcats. What a stunt there. Girl looked like she was going to fall, and 3 of them caught her. Phenomenal performance there by Plymouth. I believe that was by far and away the best performance we've seen in the 3rd round here, and that might very well propel the Plymouth Wildcats to the top of the leaderboard, as they did a lot of those extremely hard stunts in high school cheerleading, maybe the hardest stunts of all, and they did a phenomenal job handling that. And we're going to go from the Plymouth varsity cheerleading team to the Huron Middle School cheerleading team. So let's see how these middle school girls do. We saw that the Saline Middle School girls struggled a little bit in trying to get the flyer up in the position and trying to turn a little bit. So let's see how the Huron Middle School team will adjust. And it's actually called the New Boston Huron Chiefs because they, like Ann Arbor Huron, are located right on the Huron River. They're just located several miles apart, but they are still obviously very close to the river. And with that being said, it appears that the Huron Middle School cheerleaders will be ready to go very shortly. Very strong performance there indeed from the New Boston Huron Middle School ladies as they were able to successfully execute a lot of those drops there. Saline, our very own Saline varsity cheerleading team, will be taking the mat for the third and final time in this meet so far, and they've performed very well so far as the two previous rounds, and they'll be looking to finish off strong in this third and final round here. And with that being said, Saline appears to be about ready to take the mat here. Saline will be performing two basket tosses here as they appear to be about ready to rock and roll here. Strong basket toss there by the Hornets as Demi is tossed there. And Lolly, being another Saline cheerleader, Saline being able to successfully perform the basket toss for the first of today. Maddie Salmon now assuming the position of flyer. Front flip there by Daniel Beckish. Saline's got three separate flyers now. And Daniel Beckish is the young lady who is currently performing a lot of the flips there in front of the judges. And Maddie Salmon now currently the head founder position, followed by Lolly and Demi. Strong performance there to end. To end that performance as Lolly and Demi had their feet being held by Maddie Salmon there. And with that performance, Saline's day will conclude. Strong performance indeed for the Lady Hornets. And with that event concluding, folks, we only have about a little over 10 events left here. We have the Tecumseh Middle School Indians who will be performing next, followed by Dexter, Ypsi Lincoln's JV team, who has yet to make an appearance. So every reason to suspect that they'll end up being scratched, but we still have Troy, Livonia Unified, Adrian Dexter, New Boston Huron's varsity team, Jefferson, Orthville, and Tecumseh to round out the day. So plenty of action still to come here. It'll appear to be Tecumseh Middle School, that will be taking the mat here. Tecumseh High School is not performing until the very last slot here today. They will be the 47th out of 47 events here. And actually, as we touched on earlier, Kathy Mutter and Sarah Kowicki are the two Saline cheerleading coaches. However, for those of you who may not know, they were hired about 2 to 3 years ago, and Mutter was hired and she brought along her daughter Kowicki with her. They're actually a mother-daughter combination, and they both have almost equal responsibility with this cheerleading team, and that mother-daughter dynamic is proven to be very good for the Saline, as their cheerleading team has taken a lot of strides in the short tenure that Kowicki and Mutter have been here.
You may take the floor and begin when ready.
And with that, the PA announcer has signaled the Tecumseh Middle School cheerleading team to take the floor, and they will be ready to begin their choreography here very shortly. What a performance by that young lady in the front there from Tecumseh. As you guys may see, she just did quite a few front flips, and she is going to be propelled up in the founder's position on the left side there, and she's doing all that while wearing a knee brace. So might very well be playing through a little bit of pain right there, but good for her. She's doing very, very well indeed. Strong act there indeed by the Tecumseh Middle School ladies. That actually, from our vantage point, appeared to be one of the better middle school performances of the round and of the day in itself here today. I've been quite impressed with these ladies of all ages that have done a very good job in terms of performing very complex techniques, and obviously being a Saline student, I want Saline to do good, but with that being said, I can also recognize that there's a lot of talent here in this room right now, and Saline, despite having a very, very good performance here, might have some stiff competition in the final scores as the day starts to conclude here. And with that being said, the Dexter varsity cheerleading team will be taking the mat here any moment now. And for all of you who may not be extremely familiar with cheerleading, excuse me, that little 5, 6, 7, 8 cadence that you may have heard is normally said by the cheerleading captain is in order to begin the choreography. Cheerleaders normally need a signal or a cadence in order to get in rhythm. You can't obviously just say, ready, go. It's kind of tradition to go 5, 6, 7, 8 or something along those lines, whether it be a cadence, whether it be a phrase in order to get everything kicked off there. So remains to be seen if the Ypsilanti Lincoln JV team will be squaring off here. At this moment, I am led to believe that Troy, who was originally scheduled to be after the Ypsi Lincoln JV team, will be taking the mat here, but anything is possible. And obviously, our camera crew may not be able to get this, but from our vantage point on our left here, there's a table, but in the corner, there is Jamie Coral and Jay Graydon. Jay Graydon obviously being the son of Saline Superintendent Scott Graydon, and those two are athletic trainers that are currently working through ATI out of Pittsfield Township, and the dedication that those two have in terms of coming to almost every Saline event, coming around the clock in order to ensure that every meet that is held at Saline and that all Saline teams and all other teams have a qualified athletic trainer on staff. Jamie, at least from my experiences and from everything that I have heard from all the coaches, from all the players, is second to none. She has her own office here down by the high school gym, and she has another office that's located at the football locker room. So those two are normally kind of a mainstay and a main fixture here around the Saline community in terms of athletic events. And it's wonderful to see her and Jay here again today. Jay originally was working at Ace for a long time, working at Ace Hardware for quite a long time, and then he eventually got a internship, and I believe I can't attest as to whether he's been hired full-time, but I know he's been an intern here for quite a long time, and he appears to be liking his job, and he's very good at it. So with that being said,
in the hole, Adrian Varsity on deck, Livonia Unified Middle School. Up next, Troy Varsity.
And with that announcement, the Troy Varsity ladies will be concluding their night here as we're just about halfway through this round 3 event here, folks. And once again, we would like to remind our viewers that the Ypsilanti Lincoln varsity team that was originally scheduled to go first this round will be moved to last. So after this routine here by the Troy varsity ladies, it will be Livonia Unified, Adrian Dexter, Huron Jefferson, Northville, Tecumseh, and Ypsilanti Lincoln to round off the night here and to conclude our event.
Just feels good to stand up.
Tell you what, folks, a lot of similarities there between the Saline performance and the Troy performance. They were both very well done and had a lot of different moves there. You had the Flyers doing a lot of different things as they were, grabbing each other's legs and things along those lines. So quite a lot of agility. Trying to maintain your balance, you have to have excellent hand-eye coordination, excellent spatial awareness if you're going to be at that precarious of a position. And you also obviously need to have quite a bit of faith in the base ladies who are holding you. And with that being said, the Livonia Unified Middle School ladies will be ready to take the mat here. And after they are done, we will only have about 7 events left for you guys after that. So we are winding down here, and we would like to once again inform our viewers that our next live broadcast will be this Friday at Saline High School when the Saline boys basketball team duels Bedford at 7 o'clock. And for that game, we should have me and Patrick Hanavanden, who will be on the air once again. Patrick will be obviously calling the game, and I will be providing my usual nonsensical color commentary, so to speak. So, hope you guys can tune in for that. And obviously for a lot of these young ladies that are seniors on these high school varsity teams, the senior year starts to wind down. For some of them, this may be the last time they ever really get to cheerlead and be a part of something like this, being part of a community such as this, for the rest of their lives. And, it's a little sobering to think that, 3, 4, 5 months, a lot of these, sports that you grow up playing, you grow up loving, you may never be able to play again. I knew that's how I felt after the football season ended. But, it's kind of the same for every sport. And as this winter season really starts to tick down, the third trimester for seniors at Saline is quite unique because they get out 3 weeks early and they have spring break intertwined at the beginning of, or at the end of third try, There are several college visit days. And, of course, there's senior skip day. Senior year would be complete without the annual senior skip day. So, senior year is really ticking down for these young ladies and ticking down for a lot of Saline students, including myself. And it's, it's moments like this where you really begin to realize, as athletes at Saline High School that your time is really starting to come to an end, and you really want to enjoy every moment. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have the Saline Middle School girls who have 4 more years in this high school system, and they obviously are just starting to get their feet wet in the high school experience. So it's really, really, really unique and really, really fascinating, at least from my perspective, how you have ladies on 2 different ends of the spectrum in terms of their high school careers and athletic performance. And with that being said, the Adrian Varsity Maples and their 8 ladies who comprise their varsity cheerleading team will be finishing off their day with their routine here. A little bit of an interesting ending there by the Maples as they appeared to want to do a little bit more. There's a little bit of that awkward silent pause, and that will conclude there. And I wonder if that was intentionally choreographed or if that was just a little bit of miscommunication. Regardless, we have the Dexter Middle School cheerleading team who will take the mat here as round 3 continues to tick down here. After Dexter, we will only have one more middle school team for the duration of the event, and that will be the Monroe Jefferson Middle School ladies, who have had a very strong run indeed here today. And I like the improvisation on the part of the Dexter Middle School team, as obviously they don't have enough ladies to have 3 base ladies and the flyer up ahead. So what they did was they had the young base lady who would have her knee extended at almost a 90-degree angle, and that would allow for the flyer to step on her leg and be propelled up into the air. Good improvisation there by the Dexter Middle School ladies. And with that being said, here comes another strong performer indeed, is the Huron varsity, the New Boston Huron varsity Chiefs have had a very strong afternoon indeed, and they look to be right in the thick of things as the evening concludes. Not a great start there for the New Boston Huron ladies, as the one lady in front there had a hard time with that backflip, and face plant, and that might cost them a couple of points, but more than anything else, it's important to finish strong here, and if they're able to do that, they might be able to recover. That looked like it hurt a little bit, but I'm sure it was part of the choreography, as one of the Flyers was actually standing on the back of one of her fellow teammates there. Quite an interesting strategy indeed. Strong backflip there by the Flyer. And with the conclusion of that event there will only be 4 events left. Monroe Jefferson Middle School will be the next team to take the mat here, and after that we will be followed by Northville, Tecumseh, and Ypsilanti Lincoln, and all 3 of those teams will have their varsity representatives take the mat, and after that will be the conclusion of today's broadcast. And we're starting to see other teams that have already gone and their days have already concluded. They're starting to sit around the mat in order to cheer their competitors, which is very good to see indeed, folks. Nothing beats good sportsmanship. And we've seen some JV teams here today, some middle school teams, that have had a hard time fielding 10 ladies. And then you see Monroe Jefferson that has more than quite a few of the varsity teams, so quite a little bit of a numbers discrepancy indeed. And just like how football and basketball teams are watching film on their opponents and seeing what different defensive schemes and offensive plays that they should bring out for a certain game, cheerleading too is also a game of matchups. Obviously, you're constantly observing your opponent, seeing what direction they want to go, and seeing how you may be able to tweak your choreography in order to, possibly adjust and assure yourself a better score. And obviously, a lot of different things that can be taken away from the Saline cheerleading aspect. They did very, very well today indeed, but there's also some things that other teams did very, very well that I think Coach Mutter and Coach Kowecki will most certainly be observing and trying to apply to their own ladies. And with that being said, the Northville Mustangs will be finishing off their evening here tonight as they will mark the third to last performance here. After them, the only two events that are left are the Tecumseh varsity cheerleading team and the Ypsilanti Lincoln varsity cheerleading team. So should be wrapping up in the next 5 to 10 minutes here, folks. And that will conclude the Northville cheerleading team's night. And we would once again like to thank all of our loyal viewers out there. The only reason that we continue to operate and we continue to be so student-run and student-driven is because of the praise and the enthusiasm that the community gives to us. And we would just like to take a moment to thank you guys very much for all of your loyal support, and we are hoping that we're doing a good enough job to keep you guys in tune for us as we get ready to rock and roll with the spring season. The Tecumseh varsity ladies will be taking the floor and center stage here within the next minute or two, I'd venture, and after that we will come to our final event of the evening, the Ypsilanti Lincoln varsity cheerleading team. Now all we are waiting for is the PA announcer's signal that the Tecumseh Indians are ready to assume the mat. And once again, for our viewers out there, do check this round 3 and overall match scores, as well as your round 1 and 2 scores. You can go to goo.gl /4VNP capitalized J and O. That is goo.gl /4VNP capitalized J O in order to find your round scores. And they should be up to the minute and hopefully up to the date. And with that signal, the Tecumseh Varsity cheerleading team, after one last team huddle, looks like they will be assuming the mat here within the next couple minutes or so.
You may take the floor and begin when ready.
And once again, for our next live broadcast, you can see it on SalineLive.com, and the password, as always, is Saline. And with that, folks, we are at our final event as the Ypsilanti Lincoln girls team, who was originally scheduled to start first, will be performing last. And for all of you guys who didn't really want to go out there and try to drive through a lot of these roads that haven't been plowed yet, we can't blame you. So we thank you for staying in the warm comfort of your house to listen to us as we bring you this Cheer Your Heart Out invitational meet. And to cap off this evening here, the Ypsilanti Lincoln Rail Splitters will be taking the mat here to wrap up what has been a very adventurous and very exciting day of cheerleading action. And now you have just about every cheerleading team that came in attendance today. They're kind of all sprinkled out around the bleachers, and they're all watching the final event here today. You kind of have Northville, Tecumseh, Saline, and Troy all gathered in one generalized spot. And then you have New Boston Huron in their corner. The Saline Middle School girls are in their corner. And then you have the Monroe Jefferson ladies and the FC Lincoln ladies, who will be finished here very shortly. And this, once again, folks, will mark the final event here. Let's see how it shakes out. And with that, folks, the event is wrapped up as we see several of the teams going into the center mat to shake hands with other teams. And thank you guys once again for tuning in with us. It's kind of nice to see you have several other different teams kind of congregating all out the mat in order to congratulate each other and wish each other well as the season dies down. And for this cheerleading event, I am Nathan Stearns. We will be back in action next Friday at 7 p.m. Hope you guys can tune in. Patrick Canavan and me will be bringing you the game, and as always, the game can be viewed on SalineLive.com, and the password is Saline. Until next time, I'm Nathan Stearns.
The next round goes for the two-time basket. Sue Fry. Sue Fry. The next drawing is for the Coffee Lovers basket. Cindy Lyon. Cindy Lyon. And now for the Lululemon prize. Bell Sin.
Well, not too bad.
Sin.
You know, I hate the weather.
Take your tickets. If I called your name and go by the
Oh, you been out shoveling?
Thank you.
Making money or?
Hourly.
Talked to Matthew lately?
Now time for your 50-50 raffle drawing. Blue ticket number 488.
I haven't talked to him in a while either.
Again, that's 488.
Yeah, last time I talked to him, he was towing his car around.
Oh, I heard about that. It was a starter?
Have that ticket.
I have no idea.
Put
I
upstairs
think it
on
was
the
a
truck
starter.
by the big opponent. Thank you.
You missed being at school?
your medals. Top 3 positions, please get your medals. In the JV division, Monroe Jefferson with a total score of 344.94. Correction, Monroe Jefferson had a total score of 589.34. Please get your medal. In the varsity Division 4, one team, East Jackson, with a total score of 565.20. Please get your medal. In Division 2 and Division 1, first place team will receive medals. Starting with varsity Division 2. 5th place, Adrian, with a total score of 594.34. In 4th place, Huron, with a total score of 596.84. In 3rd place, Tecumseh, with a total score of 624.80. In 2nd place, Lincoln, with a total score of 625.24. And in 1st place, Dexter, with a total score of 628.10. Please get your medal. Now for Division 1 varsity. In 4th place, Saline, with a total score of 692.20. In 3rd place, Troy, with a total score of 695.44. In 2nd place, Northville, with a total score of 714.26. And in 1st place, Plymouth, with a total score of 731.26. Please get your medal. Thank you for attending the 2018 Saline Competitive Cheer Invitational. We look forward to seeing